Okay, time for log number 2. Or number 1, I guess, since I named the first one log 0, which seemed like a good idea at the time, and here we are. Okay, if you're here for the free model, it's down in the description below, link to the Cults 3D page. Yeah, go nuts, enjoy. Anyway, for everyone else sticking around, this is a time-lapse video of the creation of the former First Mate, which is it's a free model that everyone's getting, tied to the Kickstarter. More about that later. Okay. He's meant to be like the leader of the shark fin abominations, like a sub-hero, like a lieutenant, like a bruiser character in like a D&D campaign. Obviously he's got 4 arms, which is fantastic qualifications for being in charge of anybody. And yeah, this is how I made him. So the first stage of the model you're really not seeing, because it uses like a core set of like a big body and like the shark heads that were made for like the 5 that you've already seen, maybe if you've seen my other stuff. So that made them a little bit quicker to make. But first stage of any project will be to make those core models that you've created a couple of variations of, and then we play with them to create each one a little bit more uniquely. So you can see I'm just sort of bringing in like basic forms and shapes and making my mind up about exactly what I want to do. I think I love my some miniatures, and there's some models which are really good and they're really detailed, and there's some models that are really good and they're actually very minimalist. But I think one of the things that always separates the models is like the posing and the way it gives like life to a character. So that's something that I'm always like keeping in mind when I'm making my model. Now, the problem with posing a model early on is that you lose out on the symmetry that you have when you keep it in a T pose or in an A pose that you'd use for like video games. So it means that I sort of have to do a lot of stuff twice, but that sort of weighs out based on the fact that miniatures can't really, don't need to show quite as much detail as some like super high-res renders and stuff like that would want. So I'd say personally it evens out, and I like the result that I get out of it in the end. An often overlooked point, it was definitely overlooked by me when I was starting with posing models, like in the prior set of prototypes to stuff that you can actually see. It was often like the posing issue was that I didn't have small features. So like you can see here where I like tilt the shoulders a little bit, or I tilt the hips actually, don't I? And I twist the shoulders, and that just like adds a lot more life to a model. So yeah, that's a top tip. So with the primary posing done and really the primary shape as well, at least on a model like this, is like getting that silhouette down. Once that's done, it's about adding like the first step of detail, which is like big blockouts of like clothes, of weapons, of more features like straps and such. And an important one I think on these sharks is the cuts and stitches for these Franken sharks. I should have called them Franken sharks. Anyway, zombies are stuff like the open wounds that they have to make them actual zombies and not just weird looking dudes. And when I'm doing like vampires and living people, it's like clothes and hair and stuff that doesn't necessarily. Well, it does change the silhouette a lot in those cases. Okay, yeah, I'm full of nonsense. Secondary forms or whatever I say they are once I've got the model posed. And I always try and add in a bit of motion to it if I can. Yeah. Okay, and now with those secondary features in place, it will be time for the final set, which are the tertiary, well, they're what I would call tertiary details. Like 3D sculptures for games and stuff would consider other things tertiary details, like, pores and stuff like that, like stuff that wouldn't show up on a 3D printed model anyway. So tertiary details for me are about adding texture to the model in places, and specifically like Yarny Shark Boys, it's like this fur that he's getting on his belly, and like the scales that he's getting, and like the gnarly skin on his shoulder and stuff. And it's always about like trying to make a model that's really interesting when you come to paint it. And with that done, it's just time for final few little tweaks. Mostly these are like, when I'm doing the post to begin with, I'm thinking about the model in the abstract, and when I'm doing these little tweaks at the end, it's really about thinking about how the model will sit on the table. So, this guy's like a real long boy. He's got a big tail. He's like lurching forward in his way. So I wanted to add verticality to the model. Even though he's very tall already, I want to have some more verticality, which is why I give him a little bit of a twist on his ankles, and put a rock under his foot to prop him up. And he's basically done. I understand a lot of people out there don't necessarily like having a rock under the model's foot or whatever. I understand why, because if you're basing it in a specific way, it might be a bit awkward to like have to stick a rock in there. If that's something that's going to bother you, please leave a comment down below, and if enough people really give a shit, then I'll give you another one that you can have without a rock in it. I'll just do the post-processing stuff so that you can have that. Yeah, great. Model done. Time for the render. Okay, and with that, the sculpt is done, and the final version of the form I first made is finished and ready to be uploaded to the internet, which it obviously has been at this stage, because you can download it. Fantastic. This model is a tie-in for my Kickstarter, The Blighted Privateers, that you can find on the link down below, in the link, on the link, down in the link. Great. When this video goes up, the Kickstarter will be going live tomorrow. So if you're here early, then click to follow it. If not, consider supporting me, because I think it's pretty good stuff.